Gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Everybody gon' vote. Comrade! Labor right, them a go down, bang. Them a go down, bang. Them a go down. Is that? Marky, him a god picking. No hope their work if you touch Marky. Marky, him a god picking. No hope their work if you touch Marky. We now vote for Labour. Orange we a come out in now. If you love the PNP, who no step out for Marky G. Jamaica just come along with we. People time come, people time come, people time is up.
Only thing that's on my mind is who's gonna run this town tonight.
Yeah, I say that we are. Pledge your allegiance.
Who's gonna run this town tonight?
Yeah, I say that we
We gonna run this town.
Make the trumpets play. Make the trumpets play.
At half of the press, look on that little incident here. I'm going to Spanish, I'm going to Kingston. When I reach Spanish Town, I go up on this. Start to video it and so. Not knowing the reason why. Them a grab up the youth and a beers. And then also the policeman come and grab the phone out of my hand. And I have my phone. But when he realized that other people in the phone and visit, in taking one little time and give him at the phone. For what reason I don't know. And them a grab and the youth phone and the youth has to give me the phone. The little short one years ago about the boy. And him start to thump him up. And then the other one get him like them and box him up and him. But the policeman come and grab the phone out of me and you see how them out of that road. And then something of the reason why they don't want to wear body camera because they know the antics so they might behave without a road.
Then we can go kill him, you know.
Of course.
Then we can go kill him.
Hey, jump on.
What's up?
Thank you, sir.
Had the benefit of international observers last week who look at constitutional reform globally and comparatively. And they said many things which struck me, but among them is that in the Commonwealth Caribbean and in Africa and other parts of the world, a lot of constitutional reform process takes place, but very little constitutional reform because so much time is spent talking about it, resolving issues, and not enough is done to move the process forward. So here we are. I would like to get a sense of where we will go. I know that those of us who are members of the House will become occupied with elections sooner than later, and even members of the Senate will be assisting their parties with the work. So this is the context in which we are at this stage. Nothing will go to the people if the Parliament cannot agree on these goals. I have spoken about my optimism and some laugh at me. You know, when I was preparing for this meeting, I was looking back on the history, and I see that we have been stuck in a cycle. When the PNP leads, the JLP doesn't follow. When the JLP leads, there are issues. So though we had the passing of the charter when both sides came together, and that is a good example. And I know that out of that experience, there are some who say that the People's National Party should not cooperate with the Jamaica Labour Party unless and until the issue of the final court is agreed. But I would say that which final court is not a matter of a PNP court or a JLP court. It's a matter of the People's Court. And what progress we made to achieve the goals of independence should be viewed as a national goal. But I can't speak for the sentiments of the parties generally. I have been assigned a task, and I believe that the goals we are pursuing are goals that are in the best interest of Jamaica going forward. So those are my opening remarks. Depending on the signals, we will look at the schedule of meetings to review the bill. I have already consulted the diary for available dates. In keeping with the standing orders, it is the bill itself that will come under review, not a general discussion about constitutional reform, because that will have to take place at some point. But in order to make progress on the work and in keeping with the standing orders, the focus will be on review of the bill. We will make a determination as to how we deal with invitations to members of the public for their feedback on the bill and other administrative arrangements. All right, so these are my opening remarks. Leader of the opposition, I will invite you if you wish to say something.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and I again wish you all the best for 2025.
Thank you.
Before this Joint Select Committee gets into the full business of today's initial meeting, please allow me to make a brief clarifying statement on behalf of the opposition so that both sides and the public are clear on where we are. The opposition has acceded to the request of the government to be a part of this Joint Select Committee of Parliament to deliberate on this bill, which seeks, among other things, to have Jamaica move to become a republic within the Commonwealth, and indeed we are now meeting for the first time. The aim for Jamaica to abandon the British monarchy has long been the settled public position of the People's National Party. Indeed, for several national elections, it has been a prominent feature of the party's campaign manifestos. From as far back as the 1970s, it was a subject of consideration by a committee established under the Michael Manley-led administration then. And 30 years ago, in 1995, in the report of the David Corr chaired Joint Select Committee on Constitutional and Electoral Reform, there was full and firm acceptance by Parliament of a recommendation that the matter of Jamaica becoming a republic should be pursued in earnest. Neither party has ever veered from that well-documented position throughout the years. And I reaffirm today that the opposition wants Jamaica to become a republic, delinking from the British monarchy, and more. I also say to this committee and to the nation that as far as I am concerned, the rights, interests, benefits, and privileges of the people of Jamaica are paramount in this matter, over and above everything else in the remit of the opposition and of myself as its leader. And it is with that in the forefront of my mind that I make this preliminary statement here. Madam Chair, During this 21st century, the Jamaica Labour Party, in or out of government, has never given to the public an indication of its support for Jamaica to withdraw from the British monarch's court, not even as an interim measure. Furthermore, by the tabling of this bill, the government has cemented its intention for the Jamaica to move away from the British monarchy while still remaining tied to the British monarch's court. The opposition that I lead, on the other hand, far from seeking to block either initiative, seeks the pursuit and success of both initiatives, two instead of one. We say time come for full decolonization. Our position rests on the foundational principle to which all political parties in democracies must abide. It remains the sacred duty of the People's National Party. That principle asks the abiding question: how can the vast majority of the Jamaican people be left behind, particularly in a process of decolonization? Is it not they who colonization had made less fortunate? Why should they continue to remain deprived of the fundamental right of access to justice at the highest level? On behalf of the Jamaican people, therefore, the opposition is forced, dutifully, to pose certain questions to the government, and which we are concerned should, at this historic juncture, be recorded by Hansard. Hence, we agreed to be a part of this committee from the outset. These are our questions for the government. 1. The bills to move to the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ, as Jamaica's final court of appeal, were tabled in this Parliament for the second time 10 years ago. Are the people of Jamaica not entitled to be told why the government has not tabled the CCJ bills again, thereby signaling that both sides, government and opposition, will work together to accomplish the twin objectives of transitioning both from the British monarchy and from the British monarch's court? 2. Bearing in mind that the history of the constitutional reform process over the last 30 years has, undeniably, birthed a certain distrust factor, would the government not, like the opposition, wish for that to be put behind us before embarking on this leg of the historic legislative process and referendum for Jamaica to become a republic? 3. Is the government not under a fundamental duty to explain in clear and unambiguous terms why it is determined to proceed in this piecemeal fashion, instead of using the historic opportunity of this constitutional reform process to ensure that the majority of the Jamaican people enjoy the benefit of access to justice to their highest court? After all, the CCJ, as a globally respected regional institution, has long been provided to serve this purpose and is doing so with excellence that is internationally acclaimed. 4. Would the people and we ourselves not regard it as a welcome sign of maturity and wisdom to witness an agreement between the parties on the settled way forward for success on these new constitutional arrangements, regardless of which party wins the upcoming national elections? And is this not a most appropriate juncture for that consensus to be accomplished? Madam Chair, in considering those 4 questions, we should remind ourselves that the former Prime Minister, Bruce Golding, when he opened the Charter of Rights debate in the House of Representatives in 2011, made it clear to his colleagues that for success in these initiatives, consensus is essential. That is as true now as it was then, because that is what constitutional reform requires. The 4 questions I've posed, Madam Chair, are not posed for you to answer. These are matters relating to consensus in the reform of our Constitution and require answers to be provided by the head of government himself. Those answers are long overdue. Madam Chair, The answers that are forthcoming will determine the character of the opposition's cooperation in this exercise. The opposition is pushing for both sides to work together on both initiatives. We, as the opposition, need to be convinced that there is any better way forward than that. Let me repeat and stress. We need answers to these questions because the way in which the process is moving will condemn the majority of our citizens to remaining way out of sight back there without their fundamental right of access to justice being assured, and with no guarantee of their interests ever reaching the front page. The current approach leaves the people's interests behind. It is our sacred duty to bring them forward. Madam Chair, in the name of all that is good, all that is caring, considerate, and true, this situation must, in all conscience, be remedied before there can be opposition support. The opposition has sought the answers to these questions before, and now we seek them again of the government at this game-changing juncture in the country's history. As it stands, the government is leading Jamaica into a situation in which the British monarchy would have been ditched, the head of state would no longer be in Buckingham Palace, but Jamaicans would have to obtain a visa and would have to pay many, many millions of dollars to enjoy the privilege of gaining entry into their highest court, the court of the very same abandoned British monarch. What justification can there be for preserving such a backward, self-doubting, and undesirable state of affairs? The government must answer this question and explain its insistence on a piecemeal approach, which could only be premised on a lack of self-respect and shamelessness as a people. This opposition must reject that approach. We could not support or facilitate such a proposal, and certainly not under the roof of George William Gordon House. So, Madam Chair, I wish to make it pellucidly clear that we also have some other serious concerns in relation to some of the contents of this bill, which we would wish to tackle in the deliberations of this Joint Select Committee. However, the fundamental question of access to justice in the interests of the Jamaican people must be addressed first. As such, as from the adjournment of this morning's meeting, we may ask to be excused from further participation in this committee pending the answers to these questions being given to the public by the Prime Minister. Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to say those words, and I look forward to the rest of the procedural issues being addressed.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey girl.
Hey Gabby, what's up? What's up?
Hey Gabby, what going?
Alright guys, so I just checking in because remember, it's that time of the year again.
Huh? Like what you mean? Like Christmas? New Year?
Valentine? It's that time?
Guys, no. Okay, alright, that was my fault. Guys, it's time again for us to get Jamaicans registered to vote. We are looking for unregistered persons and we're encouraging them to come on the list. And those persons that we register, we want them to register some more people. Because guess what? Remember, friends don't let friends vote alone.
Believe no man, we really need to do the thing.
Hey, so what about them people who live side of me this? What about my neighbor?
Hey, me no say you have no neighbor and friend. We're calling all of them because remember, we have up to March 31, the 31st of March to get people registered. So remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. So tell a friend to tell a friend.
Wait a second, Gabby. Tell a friend to tell a friend? No problem. No problem.
You're quick, sir. And the man sent out broadcast message.
Guys, we have to remember, friends don't let friends vote alone.
People, time come now. Make the
trumpets play.